The only honest attitude of an artist is to express himself, to bring something in which one really believes. Because to follow the tastes of other people, to try to please them, it's a false direction. And I think if I were to follow someone else's tastes or wishes, I think I would deceive myself and also them, because I would offer them, present them with something in which I don't believe myself.
Stalinism, in its most severe form, could not last long after Stalin's death in 1953. By 1956, the Warsaw Autumn International Festival of Contemporary Music provided a showcase for Polish musical genius for the West, and for the Poles, a window to let in the latest developments from Europe and America. Lutołsawski's more experimental modernist scores, once destined only for the drawer, now attracted major attention. And by about 1960, he was well known around the world for works such as Musique Funèbre and Venetian Games. This is a building that was first built around the turn of the 20th century, but then destroyed during and just after the Second World War and rebuilt. So, in fact, one of the pieces most closely associated with this hall, the Lutosławski Concerto for Orchestra, had to be first performed in another building because this only opened in 1955, a year later. This is also the home of the Warsaw Autumn Festival, which has played such an important part in his life and in the developing culture of modernism in Poland.
Yeah, not only from the Polish perspective, but also from the European perspective. And I remember when I was growing up in Finland, studying composition, the only interesting news coming out of behind the Iron Curtain were from here.
Back in the 50s, starting in the 50s actually, when harmony was dead basically, was not a part of the avant-garde, a concern for harmony. He was one of the first people to sort of reinvent it, I think.
We all know the music that in early 50s were reduced a performer to a little wheel of a machine. And it was really nightmare to count quintuplets and the third or fourth note of it and wait to the right moment to play one single note and so on and so forth. So I wanted to restore the pleasure of music making in just giving some solo parts played within an ensemble.
He was searching a kind of aesthetic base for his music, a kind of source of inspiration, and definitely Debussy was his number one as a point of reference. Why? Lutosławski was fascinated with the beauty of sound, with the sensual effect of sound, and this is what he found in Debussy, and especially I think in Debussy's harmony and orchestration. Because Lutosławski's harmony is not thought as a combination of sounds, it's not thought as a structure, as a pure structure, as a pure order. There is a strong sensual aspect in his harmony, which, according to him, should appeal to senses, should please listeners.
He played a very important role here in Poland as a kind of public intellectual and icon of honesty and integrity in the face of quite difficult times.
And the way he reacted to the political events was always typically kind of understated but completely firm. During the martial law years in the 80s, he stopped going to concerts. He would not appear in this very hall, ever. And that made a big impact because, you know, his absence was very well noticed.
The government were very clever. They tried all sorts of strategies to give him state honors during this period, and he managed to avoid every one of them.
And also, you know, at this point in the 80s, he received commissions from the top institutions in the world. He was earning a reasonable amount of money, which he then gave back to the young composers of Poland and established stipends and scholarships. And
Poland is full, today is full of composers and also some instrumentalists who studied in the West, funded by Lutosławski.
Quite often he has this epilogue that after the culmination, this sort of crisis culmination of a movement, there's this kind of long, quiet epilogue where you might have long-held notes, very quiet, and then two voices in a sort of a slow, kind of sad dialogue. And I always thought of an old couple walking amidst the ruins of a town, kind of looking at this sort of terrific nostalgia and sadness, and yet these two survived. And there are lots of moments like that, and it cannot be a coincidence. It has to have something to do with his childhood and experiences, and also the kind of historic changes in Europe he was witnessing. This is very important for me personally, this series. Not only is he a very important composer who shaped a lot of the music of the 20th century, but it's also very personal, because I knew him, I admired him both as a composer and as a human being. He's turning 100, and his music is still very much alive, very much part of our lives, but it has to reach out to find the next generation of listeners, and I think this is our duty, to show what a chest of treasures this repertoire really is.